in section 7.6, it's going to be a lot like adding and subtracting rational expressions when we have to solve rational equations. There's going to be some fine tuning when we look at the word problems in this section and also looking at the inequalities. But when we start, it should look very familiar to you. So in our first example, we need to add these two rational expressions together and have it set equal to 1/4. Now, ultimately, what we're doing is we're solving. So simply, we need to solve for x here. So we're going to have to combine our like terms. So I'm going to have to look for a lowest common denominator so that we can do the work through the mathematical process. So after analyzing the 24 and the 4, I'm going to say that the lowest common denominator has a 24, and it's also going to have a factor of 3 minus x. So what I'm going to do for each term, I'm going to multiply by the lowest common denominator. So I'm multiplying both sides of the equation essentially by the lowest common denominator, but I'm doing it by distributing. So I'm going to take 5 times the LCD of 24 times 3 minus x plus 2 times the LCD of 24 times 3 minus x. And I'm going to set that equal to 1. Now, whatever I do to the left, I have to equally do to the right. So I'm going to multiply that by 1 times 24 times the 3 minus x. Now, remember that now I still keep my denominators the same because I'm just simply multiplying the left side of the equation by the lowest common denominator and the right side. So I have to distribute that to all of my numerators. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel out the common factors. So that's going to be the 24. In the second term, it'll be the 3 minus x. In the third term, nothing completely cancels, but the 4 will divide into 24 6 times. Now I'll need to simplify. So you can see that I no longer have any denominators, and that's really what I wanted. I wanted to get rid of all of my denominators. So now I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 5. So that will give me 15 minus 5x plus. Now I'll just have to combine the 2 times the 24 is 48, and I'm going to set that equal to, and I will have to distribute this 6 on the right side. So that's going to give me 18 minus 6x. All right, so now I'm going to combine my like terms. So on the left-hand side, I'll have negative 5x plus 15 plus 48 is 63. On the right-hand side, I have nothing to combine. So once everything is simplified, I'm going to go ahead and begin my solving process. So I'll add 6x to both sides, and then I'll subtract both sides by 63. That's going to give me 18 is equal to negative 45. Now what we need to check, because we have denominators that could possibly give us 0, we need to check to make sure that that negative 45 is not an extraneous solution and that it will indeed work. So when I do work through these problems, I'm always going to complete a check. So you can go ahead and use your calculator to do this, but we're going to real quick take 5/24 plus 2 divided by the quantity of 3 minus a negative 45. And what I'm looking for is to see if that equals 1/4. So I'm going to just do a little bit of quick math here. 3 plus 45 is actually 48. So if I reduce that, that's 1/24. And this is 5/24. And that's going to give me 6/24, or that's 1/4, which indeed equals the 1/4. So it does check. So x is equal to negative 45 is my solution to the x in my rational equation. All right, looking into example 2. So example 2 is a little bit more complicated. So you can see my two rational expressions plus a p. Now, I'm going to equally make everything have a ratio at this point, so I'll put that p over 1. Now, just like the last problem, I need to analyze all three denominators and find a lowest common denominator. So my lowest common denominator is going to be p plus 1 times p minus 1. And of course it would be times 1, but I'm not going to need to add that in there. So just like I did in the last example, I'm going to take both sides of my equation times my lowest common denominator. Now, I can see here that that might factor, but I actually don't think that it does if I look at it quickly. So I'm going to have to take p squared minus p minus 5 times my LCD. I'm going to set that equal to, and again, that's all divided by p plus 1 at the moment. That's going to be set equal to p squared minus 7. Again, that doesn't factor. Divided by p minus 1. Plus, then I'll have p times, I have to do it one more time, times my LCD over 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and cancel any fractions or that I can. So the p plus 1 divided by p plus 1 and the p minus 1. So that's going to leave me with p squared minus p minus 5 times the quantity of p minus 1 is equal to p squared minus 7 times the quantity of p plus 1 plus p times the quantity of p plus 1 times p minus 1. So I have a little bit of algebra to do, or a lot of algebra here to do to simplify. So I'm going to have to go ahead and distribute both sides. So I'll do that quickly here. If I distribute this, I'm going to kind of pause here and go to the simplified version for time purposes, but I will have to very quickly, I'll have to distribute everything here. So I'll get 6 terms and then I'll simplify that. So when I multiply that out, that's going to give me p cubed minus 2p squared minus 4p plus 5. Now, of course, I'm skipping a step here. So if you need to pause and come back to me, that's okay. Then I'll have to FOIL these together. I'll have to distribute this p and then FOIL and then simplify. When I do that, that's going to give me 2p cubed plus p squared minus 8p minus 7. So now I'm going to take everything to one side. So I'm going to get it set equal to 0. So I'm going to take all of these terms on the left and subtract them with the terms on the right. That will leave me with p cubed plus 3p squared minus 4p minus 12. Now I need to factor that. So since I have 4 terms, I'm going to use my factoring by grouping to do that. So I'm going to group these factors together. In the first set, I'm going to go ahead and pull out a p squared, leaving me with p, that should be p plus 3. In the second grouping, I'm going to pull out a negative 4, also leaving me with a p plus 3. Now I'm going to factor again. This time I'm going to pull these p plus 3s out. And that's going to leave me with p squared minus 4, recognizing that that's going to be the difference of 2 squares. So this is p plus 3 times the quantity of p plus 2 times p minus 2. And I'm going to use my zero product property at this point. So my zero product property means I'm going to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So my first solution will give me p is equal to negative 3, p is equal to negative 2, and p is equal to positive 2. Now, I know that was a lot of work, but at this point, I need to make sure none of those will be extraneous. So what I'll have to do is take a minute and plug each one of those in to check. Now I'm going to take the suspense away. All 3 of those are going to work, but I'm going to say they won't always work because you might have a time where it would give you 0 in the denominator. So you have to make sure that all 3 or 2 or however many solutions you end up with will work. So in this case, I end up with 3 solutions and all of them work. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause this video now, and I'm gonna start a new one with the working through the work problems. And if you need to visit that site, you can go ahead and do so. I hope you have a great day.